Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com and use discount code USA.
The many uses of a seasonal fruit during the holidays. That's coming up on This Land of Ours.
For generations, we've worked the land. We've faced hardships and uncertainty before, but you can depend on Florida's farmers. We will continue to rise before dawn and harvest our crops, ensuring that Florida-grown fruits and vegetables are in your stores and that your family is fed. We are providers for our families and yours. We're Florida's farmers, and we're in this together.
Okay, kids, let's sing Old MacDonald.
Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O, and on his farm he had a
wetland, native plants, wildlife habitat, windbreaks, contours.
Conservation is growing some wonderful things on America's farms and ranches. But it has put a new wrinkle in an old song. Conservation, there's something in it for you. Brought to you by the Natural Resources Conservation Service.
Oranges are a Christmas tradition. Sometimes they come in the form of a clementine or a tangerine. And they're not just for eating or stocking stuffers. There are so many ways we make the most of this seasonal fruit during the holidays. From marmalade to candied orange peels to creating a garland made of orange as well as apple peels. But that's not all. A few tablespoons of olive oil combined with a third cup of sugar and some zested citrus peel makes a fantastic skin exfoliator. The orange peel candle is great for 1/2 of the orange peel, and the other half can be used to build a natural bird feeder. After all, winter is a tough time for the birdies. Mix up a little popcorn, some birdseed, and peanut butter, and put that mixture into the orange peel. Use some twine to hang it up. Aside from throwing an orange in the stocking this year, there are loads of homemade holiday projects that could help to make the house more festive and the holiday more eco-friendly. I'm Kathy Isom, Southeast AgNet.
When it really counts, depend on the source for the latest weather updates, keeping you ahead of the storm. 96.3 FM, 1370 AM, The Source.
Today will be partly sunny with a high of 72 to 76, partly cloudy tonight, low 54 to 63. Then Saturday, look for a mix of clouds and sunshine with a shower in places and a high of 76 to 79. Partly sunny skies Sunday, high 79 to 83. Then look for a thunderstorm in the morning on Monday. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm Holly Holdren.
Merry Christmas from the Pack Mail Store. Thank you for all of your business in 2020. At Pack Mail, we pack, ship, freight, and crate, a family-owned business since 2007.
Nirvana Medical Spa. I'm sure you've heard that name, but exactly what is Nirvana Medical Spa? I'm Neelam Patel, and I will be live in the WOCA studio on Monday, December 14th at 8:35 a.m. to inform you just how to revitalize the health of your skin to become a better, brighter you at Nirvana Medical Spa. Please listen this coming Monday at 8:35 a.m. here on The Source WOCA. My website is nirvanamedicalspa.com.
This is Ocala Talks with Tom Schmidt, bringing stories that are important to our community in and around Ocala. Plus, of course, a splash of sports as well. Now, here's your host, Tom.
Welcome back to Ocala Talks with Tom Schmitz. On a Friday afternoon, we're going to talk to somebody now who I heard about from the late Chief of Police, Greg Graham, because Greg Graham started an amnesty program that dealt with recovery. And we're going to talk about recovery today. We're going to talk about Celebrate Recovery with Chaplain Gene Kenney from the Ocala Police Department. Chaplain, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on, number one. Let's just start there. And
so with your accent, I'm taking it you're from Valdosta, Georgia.
I'm from Boston, but I'm from the capital of Boston. I'm from Charlestown. We like to think that that is the capital of Boston.
Well, at one time in the 1700s, it was.
Well, it also we call ourselves the Townies, and there's more movies and books that have been written by that 1 square mile than I think of any other square mile in this country.
Well, let's get started with Celebrate Recovery, talking about that. Celebrate Recovery, Village View Community Church in Summerfield. Tell us about Celebrate Recovery.
Number one, the Village View Community Church is where we hold our meetings on Monday nights. Celebrate Recovery is people helping people. One of the things we like to put out in the beginning is no hurt is beyond healing. No habit is beyond help. And no hang-up is beyond hope. Well, that leads to freedom as possible.
Well, explain when you say hurt, what do you mean by hurt?
Hope is a Christ-centered 12-step recovery program. It's based on the Beatitudes. All right? The hope is in Jesus Christ, that you can't do it yourself and you need someone to help you. Just like I like to use the sheep, because no matter what Christian church you go to, or if you know anything about Christianity, they'll always refer to the shepherd and the sheep. Well, one thing that you can understand in that analogy is that sheep are completely helpless. Sheep.
Yeah, they go where they're herded. They got no understanding. They're just helpless entities that do what they're told, how they're told, and when they're told.
But they have one thing. They respond to their shepherd's voice. All right? Now, there's different references throughout the Bible to sheep and to us, and this is the reason I like to use them. Sheep can't clean themselves. They won't go in the water. They can't lay down and go to sleep and be content if there's running water. The sound will scare them. A shepherd, when he's preparing the sheep to drink, has to actually cut a hole in the stream and bring it over and make a little pond of drinking water for them, because it has to be completely still. That's why in Scripture, when it says they walk through the valley of the valley of death, we think about that sometimes with a celebrate recovery. I mean, a celebration of life. But the analogy there is that when you go through a valley, one of the mountains are going to be blocking the sun. And those sheep are afraid of the shadow, because in their world, at night, that's when the enemy comes. They have no way of protecting themselves. They were only on this earth for two reasons.
Meat and wool.
Wool and eat them. Even human beings eat sheep.
Yeah.
They're prey. So they need a shepherd. If one, people are familiar with this Bible reference, the blind leading the blind.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's because if you think about the sheep, if one of the sheep starts walking in a circle, eventually the whole flock will walk in a circle.
The blind leading the blind.
Blind leading the blind. Okay.
Well, you know, I didn't, when I was growing up, I was raised Catholic, but I could play softball pretty good. And there was a softball league in Jacksonville that was amongst the Baptist church and their youth groups. Uh-huh. So even though I was Catholic, I got allowed into the Baptist church because I could play softball pretty good. Uh-huh. Whether that's the right reason or not is immaterial to this conversation.
Yes.
But I remember strikingly in a royal ambassador meeting we were having that a speaker drew the analogy about shepherds and sheep, and he made it something we could understand, and that it's always stuck with me about how important a shepherd is to the flock. He talked about Ralph and Sam, the Looney Tunes cartoon, where the coyote and the shepherd, the sheepdog, come to work together. But without that sheepdog, the lambs were there for the coyote's taking. But that sheepdog, just like Jesus Christ, shepherded the weak so that the devil, which he said was the coyote at the time, would not be able to get after them. Now, certainly, the coyote or the devil ran the sheep around and would tempt them into doing things that the shepherd had told him not to do, but the shepherd was always there to bring them back. And that's what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And that's why I started off with the sheep analogy to try to make a reference to celebrate recovery, so that I'm not talking about a jargon. Like you go to some churches, sometimes they forget that there's a new Christian, doesn't understand the language, just like in sports. of a job. There's a language that a mechanic uses, and there's a mental language. So the point I'm trying to get across here is when you come in to celebrate recovery, and you're thinking about a sheep, the sheep can do absolutely nothing. Now, if you're doing things like a sheep and you go astray, you're a runaway, you're not coming back.
Shepherd's got to go find you.
Shepherd's got to go find you. Now, when he finds you, also, sheep cannot be trained. You cannot train the sheep. So what did they have to do to the runaways? They would break a leg.
Yeah.
They would break one of the sheep's leg and would keep them with the flock. Now, as bad as
three-legged sheep can't get away.
Well, no, I'm not talking about taking it off. It slows them down.
Right.
The reason I'm using this analogy is to put this together. When you come to a point in your life that your life is insane, and you're trying to control it in all different directions, when people look at a 12-step program, AA has done a very good job of helping people with alcohol. With that said, Celebrate Recovery is a 12-step program centered on Jesus Christ. He is our higher power. He's identified, all right? But the analogy with the sheep, if you follow me, is this. When we realize that we can do nothing, then we can understand that we need a shepherd. We need someone to guide us. We need a voice that we can listen to, that we can feel safe with, and that we can trust. And Celebrate Recovery is a safe place, and you learn to build the trust by attending with the groups. We're like a church within a church. An average meeting, Celebrate Recovery, has a DNA. So no matter where you go in the United States or overseas to a Celebrate Recovery meeting, there is a format to follow. Everything is the same. I can walk into anywhere. Matter of fact, I went back to New England and New Hampshire, went to a Celebrate Recovery meeting, and I could participate as a leader because everything is the same. The format's the same.
Certainly.
With that said, when we realize that our life is unmanageable and that we need something else, we just can't do it on our own, we'll look for the shepherd.
Always.
Always. We'll look for that voice. When you come in to Celebrate Recovery, the meetings are 2 hours long, and I make reference to a church service because I like to use the term we're a church within a church. That is, the first hour is a teaching or a testimony, praise and worship, time to fellowship. The second part of it, the second hour is small groups. That's where Celebrate Recovery is different than other 12-step programs. Because regardless of what your hurt, hang-up, or habit is, Jesus is the answer. One of the groups in Celebrate Recovery, you can have a group in Celebrate Recovery for any dysfunctional behavior. And at this point, I'll define it for you. And if you see me with sunglasses, my bifocals are in there and I'm reading, okay? All right. If you have a hurt, hang-up, or habit, or negativity affects your life, Celebrate Recovery is for you. We define a hurt as an emotional reaction to another person's behavior or to a disturbing situation, such as abuse, abandonment, codependency, divorce, relationship issues. And we define a hang-up as a negative mental attitude that is used to cope with people or adversity. And we define a habit as an addiction to someone or something: alcohol, drugs, food, sex, gambling, shopping, and hurtful people. I said that to bring this point up. Hurt people hurt people. Celebrate Recovery is not for people who need it. Through my eyes, everybody needs it. It's for people who want it. You need to work it. It's like anything else in life that has a process. What you put into that process is what you're going to be able to extract out of it. Simple enough.
Sweat equity. The sweat equity you put in is the equity you get to pull out.
Absolutely. If there's, and it's sort of, we'll use a bank analogy because it's your account. The most important thing in Celebrate Recovery is the newest person coming in. When I was new, there was people there for me. I'll never forget it. So if there's a meeting that I don't want to go to, that's what gets me to the meeting, okay? Not that I think that I don't need it, okay? It's to help somebody else.
What I find unique about this is you always hear recovery programs like the amnesty program we do at the police department is for drugs or gambling or addictions like that. You don't think about recovery programs for people that need it because they've been sexually abused or they've been mentally abused or they've been abandoned or they have relationships that last no longer than 9 months and they have 30, 40, 50 relationships throughout their life because something's wrong internally with them. And you don't think about anger management and stuff like that. All that needs to be recovered from.
And all of that is under one ministry. And to be a Celebrate Recovery leader, you go through the 12 steps. Approximate time of the 12 steps, total, ideally, according to the Celebrate Recovery Manual, a year. On average, it takes maybe 6 or 7 months, depending upon the size of the group that you have. Men to men, woman to woman, okay? It's not a place to find a date, okay? And it's not a place to think you can fix somebody.
Let me ask you this, Chaplain. What's the benefit to the community? And why did a chaplain from the police department get involved with this program? Could this recovery make better people in our community so it makes a safer community?
Yes. Let me give you a little fact there. One, I'm a volunteer chaplain. All the chaplains here is volunteers. And you mentioned Greg. And just to take a second, I've known Greg over 25 years. He actually signed my first letter of recommendation to become a chaplain. And in this community, we'll always have a gaping hole, but will benefit from Greg's devotion to the community and the devotion to the police department and to people in need.
We're better off humans for having come in contact with Chief Greg Graham.
Absolutely, absolutely. Saying that, here's how it benefits not only the community, but your churches. Number one, through the 12 steps process that you have, Saddleback Church is where it originated. Saddleback Church, I'll give you the statistics that's happened there that can happen to your church and your community. When you take the focus and you help people, in the church, a church phrase is, blessed to be a blessing. Well, you can take that one step further. You can be blessed to be a blessing, but first you have to take care of your own hurts, hang-ups, and habits. You're only good for other people when you're really okay for yourself. Through the Celebrate Recovery process, you'll find healing, putting Jesus first, following the guidelines of the recovery, being able to share, not being judged, be exactly who you are. Take off the mask that you may even wear on Sunday going to a church. If you don't go to a church, you're as welcome as anybody who does go to a church. It's not about a denomination, a non-denomination. It's about Jesus Christ. It brings people together. Not only does it teach you that, but you'll want to, when you get through the steps, the last step is, if you've had a spiritual experience, you're going to have the desire to volunteer and get involved in other people's lives. That's where, in Saddleback, they have 73% of the people who went through the Celebrate Recovery program at that location are volunteers in the church.
Really?
Yes.
70%.
It works. It works. That's a heck of a percentage.
Every 7 of 10 that went through the program now work at the church.
Volunteer at the church.
Volunteer,
yes.
right. Yeah.
Now, what happens with Celebrate Recovery, it actually brings communities together. Here's how. We meet at Village View Community Church. It's only one of the locations. You can go online to celebraterecovery.com and find a location near you. It also extends an open invitation to pastors, to priests, to rabbis to come. Come to a meeting. Experience something yourself. Bring some of your people. It transcends the lines. Nobody is looking to steal sheep. We're looking to help the sheep stay healthy. Using the phrase I used earlier, get clean. Because when they are better for themselves, they're going to be better for everyone else. Here's the problem. You point out to what people see. People see Twin Towers. All right? They see drugs and alcohol.
Yep.
Okay? I like to use a tree. We see a tree. All right? And you can hire me to cut the tree down. I don't need anything other than a saw to take your tree down. But a professional can guarantee stuff that I can't. I can't guarantee that it's not going to fall on your house. I can't guarantee I'm not going to injure someone in the family or crush your car.
All you can guarantee is the tree's coming down.
Now we got the tree down. That's when people hit rock bottom somewhere or get the recognition, as I'm using with the sheep, hey, I need a shepherd. I can't do this myself. All right? The person who goes after the roots really has the job. So, when you play God on one hand and you become your own prescription writer, all right? And that's where things are. That's where you may react to being depressed, okay, by eating food. But guess what? In Celebrate Recovery, if you don't eat enough, that's your problem. You can have a group of people who don't eat enough. If you eat too much, you can have people who are in a group.
People who have walked a mile in your shoes.
So it can handle any situation. An awful lot of churches have taken their resources in ministries, and they have multiple ministries. Well, if you lost somebody, we have grief share. All we do is we start another group on.
Yeah.
All right? And you get healthier. You understand. I like to quote, can I quote one more thing here?
One more. We got about a minute and a half before we got to find out information, stuff like that. So go ahead.
Most people know the beginning of the Celebrate Recovery prayer, the Serenity Prayer, where it says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
Living one day at a time and enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as a pathway to peace. Now, here's the second half that made sense to me when I first went to Celebrate Recovery. Taking as Jesus did the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, and trusting in Jesus to make all things right, if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life, so that I can be supremely happy with you in the next. Amen.
I'd never heard the second part of that prayer.
I hadn't until I walked in there. I can say this to you in closing. When I went to Celebrate Recovery, one of the things that had happened is a marriage of 40 years would just crumbled. I lost my identity. I had multiple problems, as you can imagine. It took me 3 visits, 4 visits, to just see if I fit. Do I belong? It's one of the best things that God has ever done for me in my life, is to find Celebrate Recovery, where I can be myself, where all the problems that we have are related to one thing: sin. And when we take sin, we have a sin nature. We need help. We need to walk it out together. The Bible is loaded with 2 or more. Well, in Celebrate Recovery, you have an accountability partner and you have a sponsor. At a later date or another visit back, as Joe said that we could do a return visit, I'd like to explain that part a little more. If I planted a seed in anyone's heart, one person, that you did a checkup for the neck up, and you said, do I want to be a better person for myself so that I can be a better person for others? Whether you're a man or a woman, Celebrate Recovery can help.
Is there a website people can go to?
CelebrateRecovery.com. We'll get them to any location near them.
Yeah.
Can I give a phone number?
Yeah, real quick.
Okay. My phone number is area code 352-427-9788. That way, if you have a question I don't know the answer, I will tell you, but I'll help you find a resource. So with God's blessing, thank you for the opportunity here. And if one person out there that you heard something that made sense, realize it wasn't me. That was the Holy Spirit using me as a vessel. Thank you.
Doctor, listen, I want to call you a doctor. You sound doctorish. Chaplain Gene Kenney with the Ocala Police Department and with Celebrate Recovery. They meet regularly at Village View Community Church, but there are other locations around the area. Go to CelebrateRecovery.com to find out a location near you. Chaplain, thanks for stopping in today. And
thank you very much for having me again.
Bringing this up, because recovery is something everybody has to go through, and it's something you don't want to do alone.
And there's an expression, till I walk in someone's shoes. We don't know what's happening to someone. But when we get involved in other people's lives, it helps our churches, helps our community, and we all benefit.
Chaplain, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this timeout, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM. We're coming to you live from the studios of WOCA Radio, just outside the food court entrance to the Paddock Mall. Coming up, it's Dumb Crook News Friday. Friday's Dumb Crook News, and boy, I got a batch of morons that I'll share with you. Coming up next. Also, on Monday, we'll be right back here with Sonda and Tom. People are in the production studio right now recording their commercials to be part of the Sonda and Tom Hour on Ocala Talk. So if you want to be part of that, get in touch with Sonda Eunice. She'll tell you how to. 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, WOCA, The Source.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this